Hi, my name is Haley Tuttle, and this is my HSEM 445 presentation for our first research paper. As most of you know, the goal of this paper was to pick a company and explain how the media either positively or negatively affected them. To give a little background on the company that I chose Chipotle, which is a Mexican-style restaurant serving a very limited menu of kind of traditional Mexican dishes such as tacos, burritos, and salads. A key point of their business is that they use fresh ingredients and traditional cooking techniques. And the owner, Steve Ells, actually was quoted as saying basically that the idea was simple and that they really wanted to show that food that was served fast didn't necessarily have to be a fast food experience. And it just goes to show that using the fresh ingredients and those traditional cooking techniques, that obviously it allowed them to thrive. For when they first started in 1993 with just a simple one restaurant, they've now blossomed to 2,198 restaurants throughout the United States, as well as having some internationally as well. However, just because they are clearly a successful restaurant business does not mean that they are exempt from any sort of crisis. And their E. coli outbreak in 2015 can clearly show that. So in October of 2015 was when the first of two waves officially struck the chain. October 2015 was the West Coast wave, basically. A total of 55 people were infected, mainly in Washington and Oregon. And out of those 55 people, 21 people actually had to be hospitalized for the severity of their illness. The second strain hit December 2015, more so in the South Midwest area. However, only 5 people were infected at this point. However, it was still a rare strain, which was very unusual, and they didn't really have a reasoning as to why this had happened. Going back to when it first started, the initial response by Chipotle was to close 43 of their restaurants as soon as they heard of the outbreak. Unfortunately, that meant that they did not release a statement saying what was going on to the public until a later date. During this closure of those 43 restaurants, they did a lot of cleaning and testing, both on all of their services in their restaurants as well as employees, to make sure that they were no longer infected, had they ever been at one point. By the time all of that was done, they released their official statement November 20th, 2015, which shortly after that was when that December outbreak had happened. And basically that statement was just an apology and stating what they had done during that closure, which they probably should have initially announced that statement a little bit earlier. However, I think they did have a good plan and they meant to just take action immediately instead of letting that sit and do the statement first. Though obviously with them being such a big company, they should be able to do both. Officially, the crisis was over as of February 1st, 2016, even though the last known outbreak was in 2015. I think the reasoning behind that was because they were doing a lot of testing, and all of that testing actually really led to nothing. The FDA actually traced the origins back to a lot of widely distributed ingredients and to try and identify that source of the outbreak. Unfortunately, they weren't able to find any ingredient of interest, so it's still unknown as to where the cause of this strain came from, which is pretty unusual. When it came to the way the media reacted, I found that it was kind of split between negative and positive. So the main negative ones I found were actually from crisis management professionals, which is kind of actually really fitting for this class. Overall, they gave Chipotle a C grade in how they handled the crisis. Basically, their main complaints were that the information that they were giving to the public wasn't digestible enough. So basically, my understanding of that was that it just wasn't understandable enough for them, and that they didn't do a very good job of breaking down exactly what they were doing. And one of the other complaints was that basically they just set the bar too low for what they were trying to deliver to consumers by saying that they were just trying to provide a safe place to eat, which I don't think that's necessarily a poor statement on Chipotle's part, though I do see the crisis management professional's point in saying that maybe make your standards a little bit higher than just saying you want to deliver safe food. Overall, Chipotle did do better, I think, compared to the Coca-Cola case that we read about with the obesity issue, the spokesperson Chris Arnold for Chipotle actually spoke against and in response to the criticism that he received, just basically saying that they didn't just sit there and do nothing. They did have a plan in place and completed that plan as quickly as they could and got everything that they could out to the public. To kind of end the media's response on a positive note, the most positive quote that I was able to find for this situation occurring was that basically Chipotle has proven time and again that they are willing to sacrifice profit in support of their mission for healthy, sustainable food, and that this E. coli outbreak is being handled with the same proactive people before profits mentality, and that it's right on brand. And I totally believe that that is the case. They are handling it by that mentality, considering the fact that they shut down 43 of their restaurants in response to this outbreak. Overall, I feel that media can always go either way, and Chipotle can be a prime example as to why every organization needs to be prepared for a crisis, because you never know when it's going to strike. Even though this big crisis didn't strike until 23 years later after they opened, they were still able to be hit. So clearly they could just appear out of the blue. And while Chipotle maybe overall didn't handle it as well as they should have, maybe not in the correct order for their processes, they actually did a reasonable job, I would say, and I would give them probably like a B rating. Honestly, I'd be too nice and give them an A rating versus that C rating from the crisis management professionals, but then again, I don't know as much as they do. But overall, they may not have returned to their normal heights quite yet when it comes to their operation, but they've done a good job, and I think we'll see them return soon.